It's really about helping people see the world differently so they can realize the best version of themselves. That's really my calling. And that's what I love about teaching, is that I get to work with some of the most brightest minds on the planet to help them be the best versions of themselves.
Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
All right, we're live from the Ben Reinberg I Own It studios today in Laguna Beach, California. And really excited to have a conversation with our guests coming on the show shortly. And we're going to talk a little bit about culture, because culture is so important in our lives. I know it's a huge topic in my business at Alliance Consolidated. Throughout the country, we talk about how do we enhance our culture, how do we enhance our environment. Marcus Collins, welcome to the show. It's great to see you. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us today on a Thursday morning here in California. I know it's about lunchtime where you are. And so just thank you for sharing some time with us, and welcome to the show.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked for this.
So you've studied the nature of influencing others, and which is so important in business and in life and relationships in a unique way. And as an author and a professor and a chief marketing officer, what are some insights that you arrived on to share, and you shared in your most recent book, For the Culture?
You know, I came up at a time in my career when virality was all the rage, and everyone's, how do we go viral using these social networking platforms? And I was head of social at this agency and head of social there. I ran digital strategy for Beatz. So I spent a lot of time thinking about virality, and it was really looking at it through the lens of the effects of influence. But then when I scaled back a little bit, sort of opened the aperture a bit more, what I realized is that virality or propagation is an outcome to something far more powerful. And that powerful thing that I'm speaking of are these external forces that push us to not only adopt things, but to share things. And that force, the most influential external force on us, is culture. And once I came to that realization, it opened my eyes, and I could see it everywhere. It's like the number 23. Once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. And that's what culture was for me. I was working in an agency, and I would hear my colleagues, I hear clients, other marketers say things like, we need to get our idea out in the culture. We need to understand what's happening in culture. We need to be informed by culture. Even from an organizational perspective, we recruit people and say, we have a good culture here. Look, we have a foosball table in the back. It's like, what are we talking about here? Because if you asked 5 people to define culture, you get 45 different answers, and that's a problem. So this really sparked in me a curiosity to understand this thing that we speak so frequently about, but yet know so seldom. We have such seldom understanding of what this thing is. So that started my exploration from an academic perspective. What is culture, and how does it affect us the way it does, and why does it affect us the way it does? That impacts not only what we consume, but how we adopt behavior in organizations, and ultimately how we navigate social life as citizens on this planet that we call Earth.
Why is culture so important? We hear that in my company. We hear that with my colleagues, and everyone does talk about culture. What, from a human perspective, why is it so important? I mean, why are people so into culture and they resonate with it, saying you have to have a great culture as a company?
Because culture is the governing operating system of humanity. You know, the founding fathers of sociology, particularly one named Emil Durkheim, would talk about culture as a system of conventions and expectations that demarcate who we are and govern what's acceptable behavior for people like us, right? So conventions and expectations is the system by which culture dictates, right? So because of who I am, my identity, I see the world a certain way, right? I'm a Collins. We believe family and church come first. Therefore, Sunday mornings I'm in a church sanctuary. right? There's no stone tablets in the basement that I signed in blood saying that I'm going to go to church. But I do it because that's what people like us do. And when I don't, I get a passive aggressive call from my mother in the afternoon who says, "How was your morning, Marcus?" Right? This is just what she does, because this is just what we do. And it's because of who we are that we see the world the way we do. And because we see the world the way we do, we show up in the world a certain way. Our behaviors are governed by what people like us do, the way we talk, the artifacts that we use, and the cultural production that we create, that we co-create, and that we use to express who we are and reflect who we are. Right? These things, these systems of systems, they are responsible for almost every decision we make in social life. Not only in what we do in the grocery store aisles, what we do at home in our family, but also what we do with our coworkers in an organization. And we adhere to these things in an effort to maintain social solidarity. We adhere to these things to stay in good standing citizenship with our people. That's important for us as humans, because as Aristotle once said, that man by nature is a social animal, right? We are given to be in community. We are given to connecting, to wanting to belong, to associating. You know, anthropologists would argue that the reason why humans were able to evolve as a species because of our ability to socialize, to cooperate, to connect. So it is deep, deep, deep in our DNA to want to be social. And the way by which we maintain our socialization in these groups that we call family, community, co-workers, fraternities, sororities, congregations, and the like, is our ability to adhere to the social the social facts, the cultural characteristics that govern what it means to be a part of these organizations.
So what is it about influencing others that you find so interesting?
Oh, that we're influenced by so many things without even knowing that we are. You know, we wake up in the morning feeling like we have all the agency in the world, that we decide what we're going to wear, we decide what we're going to eat, we decide where we're going to go, we decide who we're going to talk to, what we're going to listen to, what we're going to watch. But the truth of the matter is that we only have we have an illusion of agency. Like, we don't make our own decisions. Our decisions are being made for us by the people around us. You know, I would argue, and I do in the book, that consumption by nature is a cultural act. What we buy, how we dress, how we style our hair, if you have hair, what you drive, the kind of phone you use, if you use a phone, where you went to school, if you went to school, where you work, who you marry, if you marry, where you vacation, where you bury the dead, if you bury the dead. All these things are byproducts of what is culturally acceptable for people like us. And therefore we do it. And it's not because you just happen to like, you know, eggs for breakfast. No, like, you eat eggs because that's what we do. That's like a part of the American diet. But if you were in China, for instance, right, you might have noodles for breakfast. And you would just say, I just love noodles. Yeah, you do, but you were interpolated to love noodles. Just why you were interpolated to dress the way you dress, or like the kind of music that you like, or be attracted to the kind of people that you're attracted to. These things are all byproducts of what's acceptable behavior for people like us. And even as a practitioner, as an academic who studies these things, I find myself over and over being influenced by it, just like, you know, the people that I study and the things that I put in the world on behalf of brands across the world.
Are you good at influencing those people around you in your personal life?
You know, here's how I think about it. My mother was a middle school counselor. Mm-hmm. And when I'd see her in action, I'd be like, who is this woman? Because I don't know her. This woman is so empathetic, and she's so compassionate, and she's so even-tempered, and she's so patient. But as soon as the clock stops and she becomes Jeanette Collins, Marcus Collins' mother, I'm like, where's that compassion?
Yeah, she becomes mom.
She becomes mom. And man, all the practice kind of goes out the window. And I think that the same thing kind of goes with all of us. You know, like, we often have our hat on as a practitioner, and we can remove ourselves as an individual. And I think that in my own personal life, I find myself sitting in the role of of Marcus the human, not Marcus the practitioner. And I don't leverage the tools as much as I probably should until I sit and think about it intentionally. Like in the classroom, I go, how can I influence my students to do X, Y, and Z? When I think about, my daughters, particularly my eldest daughter, Georgia, how do I get Georgia to eat peas? Because she won't do it. How do I get Ivy to go to bed on time? Because she won't do it. It's not until I stop and intentionally think about them that I'm able to harness these mechanisms that we know influence people. But in my day-to-day life, as Marcus, the father, the husband, the son, the brother, the friend, I don't lean into it as much as I should. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, is to help not only practitioners, but help us as citizens of this world be better, and not only influencing each other, but also influencing ourselves. Give us much more agency to say, I know what's happening to me, and I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to do it even though I know the influential forces that are being pushed upon me from these people, these messages, and the like.
Well, here's a secret with the girls. Start eating peas, Marcus, right in front of them, and go to bed early, and you will see your world will change. That's a father of three telling you. But my
I do?
Are a lot older, so
I typically tell them, I go, this is what Collinses do.
That's
Are you
right.
a Collins? If you're a Collins, this is what we do. And that's leveraging what I do as a marketer.
Right.
I go, the cool kids do this, or sneakerheads do this, or hip hop heads do that.
What are some of your favorite marketing campaigns you've led?
That I've led.
What kind of influence were you looking to achieve at that moment?
I think one of my favorites, it's not, I don't know if it's the, it's like, which kid do you like best?
Right.
I think one of my favorites is probably the Brooklyn Nets campaign. So I was fortunate enough to move the New Jersey Nets to Brooklyn to become the Brooklyn Nets, right? So I worked on that campaign. And at the time, from a value proposition perspective, this was a really tough nut to crack, because you have an export from Jersey into New York. And if you know anything about New Yorkers, they do not like anything from New Jersey.
Right.
Except for like Bon Jovi and like Bruce Springsteen.
Springsteen. Right.
It's like, other than that, no. There's an inherent tension between the two. So you had this export, right, that's not favorably welcomed. Not only that, but the export itself, that is the New Jersey Nets, they weren't a good team. They weren't a great team, I should say. They never won any championships. They made it to the finals once with Jason Kidd and got swept. It wasn't so on paper, this was not a compelling team that was coming over. This wasn't like the Lakers are coming to Brooklyn, right? And then not only that, the team was building an arena in the Atlantic Terminal area of Brooklyn. This is a very historic area of Brooklyn that was going to upseat a lot of local businesses as well as residents. So there were protests and boycotts against this arena being built. Lots of things pushing against this. And the brief that we got from the client, the CMO at the Brooklyn Nets, says, I want the Nets to be to Brooklyn what the Knicks are to Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough task.
Whoa, that's a really tough task. So, the team, think about how do we approach this? And we thought, you know what? Let's not even focus on the value propositions here. Let's focus on the people, on the Brooklynites. And what do we know about what it means to be a Brooklynite? That these groups of people are the most proud folks you'll ever meet. And we know this from things like, is Brooklyn in a house? Where Brooklyn at? Like these calls that are professed in large crowds. The people doing those calls, they know they're going to get a big response because of how proud Brooklynites are. So we decided to tap into that Brooklyn pride, such that the campaign, that is the team, would be a receipt of identity them from Brooklyn. Right. The team would be the way by which Brooklynites will signify that they're from Brooklyn. And we leveraged a theory from Edward Bernays, one of the founding fathers of propaganda, who says that you can unite a people by declaring an enemy of the state. You can bring people together by declaring an enemy of the state. And fortunately, there was an inherent enemy of the state for Brooklyn. And that enemy is called Manhattan. So the entire campaign was about stoking the rivalry between Brooklyn and Manhattan, such that Brooklynites will use the team as a way to peacock their identity as a Brooklyn resident. And it was wildly successful.
Wow.
We did nothing but local activations beyond a Twitter influencer campaign. And, this thing was trending on Twitter nationally, even though it was a locally focused campaign. And before the team even hit the floor, before there was even a game played, Brooklyn Nets merch went from number 28 when it was New Jersey Nets to number 4 in merch sales among all the 32 teams in the NBA. I mean, this is a signifier of that. The Brooklyn Nets was more than just a team that was playing on the court. It was a way by which people expressed their identity. And ultimately, this is sort of what we go after, that culture is anchored in identity. And if we can activate people based upon their identity monikers, all the associated behaviors, all the associated adoption will come along with it inherently, because we go the way of our identity.
Oh, that's so well said. And as you know, I'm in commercial real estate. I've been in commercial real estate for almost 3 decades. I'm interested. This is a selfish question, and I'm going to ask it. Have you ever worked on marketing campaigns that involved influencing people's investment decisions? It's something that we do as a company. I have a lot of colleagues that say, ask Marcus this question. This is a great question to ask him, because there is a lot of investment advertising going on with the new laws for investment. Have you ever worked on campaigns, and what's been your experience with it?
So I've had a chance to work with like mobile investment apps, right? And the idea is, how do you make these platforms that are already democratized, right, ubiquitous in nature, how do you leverage their ubiquity to get people to adopt these new behaviors, i.e. Investing? And I always think that we always lead with the value propositions first, as opposed to leading with the cultural identity first. We go, hey, it's an easy way to get into the stock market. It's an easy way. It's an easy way. It's easy. But we haven't gotten over the first hurdle is, do people like me even do this? And I found that when we focus on those things first, we focused on who these people are, what's important to them, then we find ways to frame the value propositions based on their identity. And the way I talk about it in the book is this: you got to start with the soul and end with the sale. You start with what people believe, how they see the world because of who they are, and then you end with the value propositions. There was a really interesting campaign that Cash App did a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, where the idea of Cash App was this is about empowering people to use money, use commerce as a way to realize their potential, a way to realize their dreams. And the communication was just so spot on. It had one gentleman talking about his hopes in business, and he was communicating it in a way that was aligned with his cultural subscription, right? The vernacular, the colloquialisms were of his cultural subscription. And he's talking to Kendrick Lamar, the rapper. And Kendrick Lamar is hearing the guy talk. And then Kendrick Lamar turns to the CEO of Cash App. And then he explains to the CEO what the guy is saying. And then the CEO of Cash App goes, oh, okay, what he needs to do is X, Y, Z. And then Kendrick Lamar hears him and then turns to the guy with the career ambitions, with the business ambitions. And then he translates what the advisor says. And the guy goes, oh, I get it. And what Cash App is saying that we realize your dreams. All you need is the translation. And you go, oh, bet. I want to do these things because people like me do something like this. We are venture prone. We try to find things to help us elevate where we are to get to new heights, but we never know how to really do it. And Cash App is here we see the vision and we're going to help you translate it. We just so happen to have the platform by which you realize them through investments. And that's just unbelievably powerful. That when we understand who people are, what their dreams are, that is what their ambitions are, based on how they see the world. And we can speak to them in a language that is theirs based on those ambitions. We can communicate to them in such a way that starts with the soul, and then we provide the value propositions that end with the rational sale.
So for you personally, what's one of your greatest investments you've made that you could share?
Here's so you talk to a professor here. So in one way, I think about it in a very tactical way or a very tangible way. And I think about it in a more esoteric way, because I asked this question to my students in my social media marketing course. And I go, what's the biggest investment you made in your life? And they go, oh, my education, for sure. Like, it's so expensive for me to go to college, like 1000%. And I go, okay. And someone say, well, maybe a car, because maybe they bought the car with their own money, right? Or maybe, or something else, right? Maybe it's in their their video game collection or their sneaker collection. I go, yeah, sure. And I say, I think you're all wrong. And they all look at me sort of puzzled. And I say, your biggest investment is your people. Think about the investment you made in your people, your friends, your family, right? Your fraternity brothers and sorority sisters. You've invested heavily in those people. And it's because of those investments that not only have you grown socially, but you've gotten access to other things that have led to financial outcomes. And I think I share that perspective, that my biggest investment has been my network, my people. Now, what are the monetary investments that I've made to access the network that is mine now? I would surely say it's education. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if I were to think much more tangibly, it'd probably be my home. No. I would probably say my stock portfolio. Very, very active in my portfolio.
How do you make investment decisions, and what's your financial philosophy?
I think about how do the younger I get, the more risk loving I am. Go, okay, look, these are the moments where the decisions I make now will have I'll have much more dynamism, and like, if it didn't work out, then I can kind of get back. The older I get, and the more I collect, i.e. children, the more risk averse I become, right? So go from being risk loving to more risk averse. Because I have less time to make up for losses. So the strategy now is to be somewhat moderate in our investment. We have a portfolio manager that constantly is pushing us to do more, honestly. But I think about, where I see the world going, and I try to get ahead of it, right? I take risks on my intuition, on what I know of the market and where I see things going. And then I maintain my conservatism on the things that have slower gains, more marginal gains, but they're much more consistent.
What'd you do with the first check you ever received?
Oh, man. It went into buying our house. One investment to the other.
So for folks out there that don't know, you're also a college professor.
That's right.
You're impacting lives of the younger generation. What do you enjoy about teaching at U of M, and what have you learned about yourself from the years that you've been doing this?
I would say a few years ago, almost 10 years ago now, I was living in New York City. I was working at an advertising agency. I started adjunct teaching at NYU. And I remember folks would ask me, what do you do in New York? What do you do? Right? What do you do for a living? And I say, I'm an advertiser, but I also teach, and I also kind of give talks. I just felt like I was running a laundry list that didn't feel inspiring at all. It felt kind of boring, even me saying it out loud. I could feel myself, my eyes rolling myself. And I started thinking a lot about, like, why do I do the things that I do? Like, what's the driving force, the North Star that guides these things? And what I've resolved to is this, that I believe, my own personal beliefs, that we're all here to serve God and serve each other. That's just what I believe, right? And I feel that I am at my best when I'm helping people realize the best version of themselves. when I'm in the boardroom, when I'm in industry working as an advertiser, like I feel like I'm at my best when I help my clients see the world differently. And they go, oh my goodness, we could do X, Y, and Z now. Or people who work with me or work for me go, I never thought about it that way. I can leverage this, that, and a third now. And they become better at what they do. In the classroom, it's the same thing. I'm helping students realize their highest potential. When I'm, on stages, when I'm writing, whether it's the book that I've written for the culture or writing in my column on Forbes, it's really about helping people see the world differently so they can realize the best version of themselves. I think that's really my calling. And that's what I love about teaching, is that I get to work with some of the most brightest minds on the planet, particularly in this country, to help them be the best versions of themselves. And I feel like when I do that, I'm living out my purpose. I feel like I am serving in the way that I'm most suited to serve.
You have such a great demeanor about yourself, Marcus, and you're very sophisticated, intelligent. And a lot of people want to know, like, what do you do? Do you work on yourself? Do you personal development? Do you have a morning routine? Share with our audience, like, you are so well-spoken and so calm. What do you do to take care of yourself for your own development?
Oh, that's just very nice of you to say. I don't, I think, and my wife would say I don't take well enough care of myself. But that aside, I think that, I've spent a lot of time just trying to get better at everything that I do. And if there's any cheat code that I've had, it's just to stay in student posture. I realized that there's so many people who are better than me at doing things that I do, that it would be the hubris to think that I am the master of it all is just ridiculous. It's preposterous. And I credit that to academia, right? Like, I feel like I know a lot about one small little thing that I know very, very well, but the world is an ocean that I know very little about. So I stay in a posture of, I want to learn, and even in my field, I want to learn. So I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly taking inventory. I'm constantly just sort of thinking about what's the gold standard and where am I to that? And how do I get better at doing that? I love that quote from Kobe Bryant. I'll paraphrase, he'd shoot 1,000 shots after every practice.
Yeah.
It's like you practice for hours. Then the guy stays hours after that just to work on the shot, just to shoot 1,000 shots. And I go, like, if that's what greatness looks like, and I feel like, that's what, just like I want to help people realize the best version of themselves, I want to help myself realize it too. And if greatness means shooting 1,000 shots after every practice, then I guess I'm shooting thousands of shots. So I'm reading all the time, every opportunity I can to, get on stage and practice the instrument of presenting. I'm doing it. I get to talk a lot, much to my wife's chagrin, about these things in classrooms and on podcasts like yourself. And I get to write and think about it often. So I'm just constantly working the muscle. It's that idea that, like, what average people do seldomly that is great people do all the time.
That's right.
It's just it's just a constant thing. It's just a part of what they do. So my routine really is that, I do 3 things every day. I work, I worship, and I take care of my kids. That's it. And I find so much joy in that. I mean, there's some times that work sucks. Sometimes my kids suck. True. But I find so much joy in that I just maintain a level of gratitude. It's hard to be upset when you're grateful,
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the level of gratitude, because I remember times when things weren't working out so well for me. And I remember times when I felt like the dumbest person in the room, when I was the dumbest person in the room. And I hold on to that feeling and try to seek out the rooms where I continue to be the dumbest person so I can keep learning.
And one thing you touch on that's so important is work ethic. Kobe had a tremendous work ethic.
Yeah.
And if you put in the time to master your craft and keep pushing forward out there, anyone listening, and Marcus just attest to it, you can be great at whatever you want to do. So well said. And I appreciate that. The name of the show, Marcus, is I Own It. And we wanted you on because you own every aspect of your life, your behavior, your actions, etc. We're all works in progress, and we always will be. Share a recent example with everyone where you realized that you had it wrong, Marcus, and you owned it fully.
Oh my goodness. I think this may be a little bit more personal than most. I came upon this idea that I read about, that you have to be mindful about the stories that you tell yourself. And what I realized, that I've been telling myself some really crummy stories about myself. Like I would make a mistake. I go, stupid. Or I go like, oh, Marcus, you idiot. Or I would doubt myself because someone else doubted me. And I go, oh, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I'm not, and I would tell myself these stories. And anytime that I would make a mistake, or anytime that I wasn't the best version of myself, I go, yep, see, there it is. And I were looking at these moments as evidence of mediocrity or as evidence of failure, as opposed to moments of reflection to get better. And it's just, and the only difference was just the perspective that I had. And I realized that if you tell yourself better stories, then the world shows up better. Like the world isn't objective, it's subjective, right? And it's really based on you. I mean, like, you're talking about owning it. Like, it's really depends on you. You can see a failure as a moment to be down, or you can see failure as a moment to get better. It's like, I wrote this in the book, that for some, a cow is leather, for others, it's a deity, and for some, it's dinner. Which one is it? It's all of them, depending on how you see the world. And I think that for a long time, a very long time, much longer than I care to admit, I had been telling myself some really crummy stories about myself. And it wasn't until recently that I was like, why? And the thing is, I mean, this because you're a father of 3, that it took me listening to myself tell my daughter stories to help her improve her self-esteem. And I was like, you're not even taking your own advice, dog. I tell my daughter this. She came home from school and she says, I don't think I'm good at math. And I go, what do you mean? Like, we do math all the time in the house. Like, you crush it. What do you mean? And she's like, no, so-and-so said that I didn't do that well, or they answered it faster than me. And like, and I'm not like a part of their friend group. And I told her, I said, Georgia, my eldest daughter, I said, listen, you got to go where you're valued. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, bottle of water. How much does it cost at a gas station? She says, I know, $1.50. She's like, right. But that same bottle of water would cost $3 at the movie theater. Mm-hmm. That same bottle of water would cost $5 at an amusement park. That same bottle of water would cost $7 at a football game. Same bottle of water. So what's the point, Georgia? It's like, go to the football game. If they think you're only $1 over here, go to the movie theater. Go where you are valued, right? You are good at what you do. And if no one else can see it, they can't see it, then go to the places where people can see it. And as I was saying these words out of my mouth, and I was like, are you listening to yourself, Marcus? Are you listening to yourself? Because you've been telling yourself pretty crummy stories about yourself. And it's from that moment, again, this is just like, honestly, like 4 months ago, that I've been much more intentional about the stories that I tell myself, such that I use moments of failure as moments to get better. And that when I find myself in places where I don't feel like I'm valued, I change the location.
Oh, what a great lesson that is. It's being in a state of love instead of a state of fear. If for anyone out there listening, it's really the empowering thoughts you have and trying to eliminate best you can the disempowering thoughts that you have about other people and yourself. You'll see a world of difference, and you'll live a much more fulfilled life. And
that's right.
And so I really appreciate that insight. I absolutely agree with you on that. And that is why you own it. So, Marcus, what is the best way for everyone out there listening to engage with you, follow you, and really learn your teachings? Obviously, feel free to pick up his book, For the Culture. Great book, a lot of great lessons in there that you can really, kind of unpeel the onion a little bit and look at yourself and say, how can I improve as a person? And so it's a great piece of literature. But overall, how do people follow you and engage with you?
I would say I'm most active across the social web, particularly the Instagrams, the LinkedIns of the world. You can find me at Mark to the C, MarcTothec, like Mark to the C, like Mark to the Collins, or my website, where there's lots of material, there's lots of media that kind of reframes a lot of these ideas. But I'm most active across those social channels.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Marcus Collins. We're going to wrap up with our 3 questions. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So you're in the studio with me in Laguna Beach, and I tell you to get on the couch, kick off your shoes, lay down, relax, and go back to when you were 16 years old. And you are a sophisticated, well-educated man, 2 beautiful kids, a wife, a successful career. You're a professor. And things are just rocking for you right now. Go back to when you're 16. What advice, what would you share with yourself at that age to help you get to the point in life that you would want to achieve?
That no one's going to believe in you like you. So you got to believe in yourself. And though you have a vision for what you want to do, it may not be how it ultimately turns out, but it'll be better than you think it's going to be.
Oh, I love that. So it's our last day on earth. God forbid. It's just me and you, kid. It's our last meal together. Your choice, Marcus. What are we eating and what are we drinking?
Oh, this is an easy one.
All right.
Cheeseburger,
Ooh.
Extra pickles, fries, and a root beer.
Oh, God, I love that. What a good way to go out.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So in our studio, Marcus, we have a black door, and you can have any band or musician play us a song and walk through that black door. We have a grand piano, a drum set, electrical and acoustical guitars, and they could be living or deceased. So who would you have come through that door, and what song would they play us?
Oh, wow. I would go with Take 6.
Okay.
Take 6 is an a cappella group. Actually, I'll say they are the a cappella group. They are the epitome of vocal music. And I feel like everything I know about harmony, everything I know about chordal structures have come from their unparalleled vocal ability. And even though there's a drum set, there's a piano, all the instruments are there, I feel they'll all be bested by the voices of Take 6. And the song they'll sing is Getaway Jordan, because it is the most perfect song that I could think of. Oh,
that's fantastic. I love it. Well, if you are interested in listening to more episodes like this that Marcus just dropped on us, drop kick that right-hand button and click subscribe. Feel free to click the like button as much as possible so we can let everyone out there in the universe, and as we say, let it go viral. Marcus Collins, what a treat to have you on today. If you want to follow me, go to benreinberg.com to look at me at all the social media platforms. Feel free to engage with me. And if you are interested in investing in commercial real estate passively and building wealth for you and your family, go to our company, AllianceCGC.com, and we will help you create a legacy and wealth for you and your family. Marcus Collins, thank you so much for joining us today, and what a privilege. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.